Today's topic, I want to discuss rates for fixed annuities. And more importantly, kind of explaining the pros and the cons of how a fixed annuity works, and then why it could be beneficial, especially with today's interest rate environment. What individuals have noticed is that obviously interest rates have been increasing. Each month it seems consistently for many months. And whenever that occurs, there's a trickle-down effect for a lot of fixed-related accounts and fixed index-related accounts, where retirees or individuals that are just looking to grow their accounts can leverage these fixed rates to have their monies grow on a consistent basis. Something that's saying, okay, you know what, the market's going hell in a handbasket right now. I want to at least make sure that I'm receiving some sort of rate of return on my dollars. And then how can I leverage these sorts of benefits to make sure that I'm utilizing it for maybe an income need later on, or just a tax-deferred growth need, just allowing it to grow and grow. But most importantly, because there's so many different types of fixed annuities out there, I want you guys to understand the mistakes that individuals make and how to avoid those, to say, okay, if I am interested in a fixed annuity, this might be an appropriate avenue for me to take, whether I have an IRA, IRA pre-tax qualified monies, or a Roth IRA, or a non-qualified monies, meaning post-tax dollars. So there's a whole slew of different ways on how to do this. It's just making sure that you're avoiding a lot of the marketing messages that, unfortunately, these insurance carriers that offer fixed annuities, they try to manipulate, time and time again. So a fixed annuity is a type of account that's offered through an insurance company. A similar sort of account would be a bank offering a bank CD, or bank certificate of deposit. So one's offered through a bank, the other's offered through an insurance company. The most simplistic way I could explain how these things work is think of it like the form of a bucket. The way on how this bucket or this account grows is by the contribution somebody makes into the plan and the rate of return that comes back. Well, if something's fixed, and let's say you had an example where you had an account that was paying you a 5% fixed rate of return for the next 5 years, this individual will add, let's say, $100,000 into this bucket. Think of it like a bucket with a lid over it. There's no more contributions in there. And now they understand that every year on their anniversary date, they're going to be receiving a 5% rate of return, 5% rate of return, 5% rate of return. Now, a fixed annuity acts slightly different than other sorts of fixed accounts, similar to a bank certificate of deposit, a bank CD. And what I mean by that is a bank CD will grow with the power of simple interest, versus a fixed annuity will grow with the power of compound interest. So in that example, let's say if you had a bank CD that was paying 5% and you had a fixed annuity that was paying 5%, what do I mean by the difference of those? Well, with the bank CD, you put $100,000 in, you're going to get $5,000 credit the first year, $5,000 the second year, et cetera, et cetera. After all 5 years, your account balance, or the total amount that you would have received in interest, was $25,000. It's $5,000 or 5% off of the original principal. With a fixed annuity, you have that $100,000 that the individual placed in there, growing with the power of compound interest. After the first year, your account balance is going to be $105,000. So it's going to be, identical. But the next year, it's going to be 5% of this number. So this is where it's going to grow to $110,250. That extra $250 is the power of compound interest. The further that we go out, it's going to have a larger variance between the simple interest effect versus the compound interest effect. So in this example of, let's say you scale out 5 years, after 5 years, the remaining account balance would be $127,628 from this account that started at $100,000, with the power of compound interest, the fixed annuity versus the bank CD, that this individual would have had to, first off, if it's a non-qualified account, they would have had to pay tax on that interest gain each year, and that interest gain would have only been the simple interest off of the principal. This one, you would have $27,628 of pure interest, above what your principal amount was, meaning obviously a larger number. The other thing to be mindful of is fixed rates, or typically the best fixed annuities, will outperform the best bank CD accounts by about 1 to 2% of margin. So basically, if you have like a top bank CD that's, a best 5-year bank CD might be paying 3%, well, the best 5-year fixed annuity might be paying 5%. So not only are you getting more benefits from the tax-deferred growth option and the power of compound interest, but you're obviously able to have a higher rate of return, a higher fixed rate of return. So when somebody's looking to set up their fixed annuities, they have two main options. They could either start pulling out withdrawals to live off of for some sort of income need, or they could allow it to grow, to allow it to leverage the power of compound interest and just grow that account that much further. So it really just depends on the time frame and what that individual is looking to accomplish on which mechanism or which strategy that they should use. Because this sort of account is in the form of an annuity, an individual does have access to something known as annuitization options, where they could surrender control of their money to the insurance company to receive some sort of lifetime income stream. I typically hate the aspect of annuitization because, once again, you're losing control. There's no reason. If there's a way on how to accomplish your goal, but have the chips in your own possession, as opposed to surrendering it to the insurance company, it could put you in a much better position to make changes, to have some more customized options, to take advantage if interest rate environment keeps increasing, how to leverage that whenever your duration has been met and you have access to your principal and interest. So there's a whole slew of different things. So typically the annuitization options is something that I don't like to recommend to individuals, just because they're more favorable lifetime income options available if that was something that was important to an individual and their retirement income situation. The other aspect that I touched up on was make sure that this sort of account gives you the same interest rate every year. And that's something that individuals don't necessarily understand, is they might see something that looks like the nice shiny object saying, okay, you have a fixed annuity that's going to pay 5.5% per year for the next 5 years, or you have a fixed annuity that's going to pay you 6%. But that individual does not read the fine print that says it's only going to be 6% the first year, and then it's going to drop down to 2% for the next 4 years. So when we go and we obviously add these all together, this is only going to give this person a positive 14% rate of return with the power of compound interest, 6 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, versus 5.5% multiplied by 5 years, which will give this individual a 27.5% compound interest rate of return on their monies. So even though this nice shiny object was saying, oh, 6% over here, come in, free candy, it was bullshit. And that's where you have to make sure that you're reading the fine print, or you're seeing the illustration where it's going to say, okay, these rates are, have some sort of guarantee for X duration of time. And that's how to make sure that you're leveraging it properly. So even though it's pretty self-explanatory, a fixed annuity is going to give you a fixed rate of return, there are many things to avoid and to make sure to decipher, okay, which carrier should I go with, or which option should I go with? And these things change. These things change every couple of weeks on which one might be the best option versus that one therefore falling into 10th place or 15th place. So if you have hundreds of different options typically available with an individual's situation, their state, their age, you always want to make sure you're going with the top option, not some sort of inferior option. The number one thing, which I just touched up on, was, avoid the shiny object. Don't just go with the one-time interest. Get something that is going to give you a consistent rate of return, some sort of consistency, whether that's you're in a 3-year account, a 5-year account, a 7-year account, and there's at least some sort of, decent rate of return on there so that you could match it up with what your goal is, whether that's an income goal or a growth-related goal or even a diversification goal, how to make sure that you're at least leveraging this like its own individual tool to give you the best possible power by using that sort of account. So that's the difference, is rather than just get one shot of a bonus, make sure that it's going to give you that consistent, same rate of return for all those years. Now sometimes you do have a really large bonus where it might make sense if it's like a shorter duration, like a 3-year, and you have one that's giving you a 10% upfront rate of return, and then it's going to drop down to 2%, versus something that might only give you a consistent 3% each year for the next 3 years. Obviously, you have to outweigh what the options are, but just do not get caught up in that trap and try to avoid that mistake. Also, long-term durations. You have some that could be as high as 10 years. You have little sweet spots. So maybe somebody needs to grow their money and they know that they're not going to be touching their money for the next 3 to 5 years. Well, go towards a 3 to 5 year duration account. You don't have to go and lock your money up for the next 10 years, because let's say if you're 5 years into it and interest rates increased, well, you might be able to get out, take all your monies out of it and go into whatever that next best option is after that 3rd year, after that 5th year, whatever that case might be, as opposed to getting handcuffed into those inferior rates. There's typically liquidity options, and that also is going to determine whether you have a good company or a good offer versus a bad company, bad offer. Is you might have something that will only give you access up to your interest only. So let's say if you have an account that's only paying 4%, versus you have another account that's paying 3.90%, but one of those accounts allow you to have access up to 10% of free withdrawals, versus the other account allows you to have no access to your monies until after that duration has been met. Well, it might make more sense to go with that smaller duration just because you have more flexibility at your fingertips, or something that might only give you interest only as opposed to something that will give you access up to 10% if you want to leverage that, if you need to pull out some monies after starting after that first year for multiple years during your duration. The other thing that you typically want to avoid or should be avoiding are riders that are attached to this. So these are not like fixed index annuities where a rider might give you a really good income play. Typically these riders say, oh, if you want to access your monies, any portion of your monies, we're going to charge you 25 basis points or a 0.25% fee or a 1% fee. So you might have something that you're getting a 5% rate of return. It shows 5% rate of return for these next 5 years. But if you want to access any of your money, it's going to cost you 1% per year. So you're only netting 4% of a rate of return, as opposed to another company which might give you a 4.75%, but they have your monies flexible. Obviously go with something that gives you the best flexibility. I've also seen it where if somebody needs to take out monies for required minimum distributions, then they have to tack on an RMD rider for that, where you have other carriers where they already have the RMD friendly is already built into those sorts of plans. So meaning that they're not going to charge an additional fee, an additional rider to that. I've also seen some situations where, let's say that an individual goes and puts $100,000 with an account. That account is paying 5% rate of return. It's, growing 5%. But if this person passes away, then their beneficiaries would only receive what the net surrender value is. Meaning if they did not live for as long as that duration was, their beneficiaries would get penalized for that unless they added some sort of death benefit rider fee with it. Which, once again, I don't mean to curse in this video, but it's complete bullshit, complete nonsense that some of these companies get away with it. And because they have these little finite details, unfortunately, advisors many times miss out on this, or individuals that are trying to get set up, they miss out on this different verbiage and they get locked into something and then realize after the fact that they can't get out of it because of, this company basically showed them the nice shiny object, but then we're beating them over the head with fees and really unnecessary fees, for that, from that standpoint. So I hope that makes sense regarding what to avoid. Also, be mindful that, each state is going to be different. So if you live in a state where they may not be offered, one carrier might have a really good rate of return, but it's not going to be offered, then obviously you can't have access to that sort of product line. So that's where you have to be careful and really see, what's going to be the best route for your situation with the best fixed rates. At any point in time when you're reviewing this video, if you want to have a conversation, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. Just reference this video and make sure to get an advisor set up with your calendar, what makes the most sense. Sometimes fixed annuities could be really good for an individual situation, and especially because the interest rate environment has increased substantially in the more recent months. And then there's many times where they're not a viable solution, and somebody should be avoiding those. So that's where we try to, figure out what you're trying to accomplish, what's most important to you, and then trying to, fill in those pieces and say, okay, well, this sort of account or this sort of strategy may be the most mathematically appropriate, for your situation. And lastly, what are some of the solutions with this that I kind of touched up on was income. So an individual could leverage a sort of account to say, I don't want to dip into my principal. I want to make sure that if I'm placing my money aside into something, I'm getting a fixed rate of return and just kind of live off the interest. They could leverage that from a sort of income standpoint. Another reason why someone would want to use this is for growth. And an individual that may be terrified of the market, they're risk averse, and they're saying, hey, I want to just make sure that these monies are preserved, protected. I don't necessarily need to pull it out for income, but I just want it growing and then maybe use it as a type of splurge account and saying, hey, every time that I'm getting a good interest rate of return, I'm getting my 5% fixed or 4% fixed or whatever that case is, I'm going to use that extra interest and, spend, me and my spouse are going to go on an extra trip this year, or maybe get an extra present for the grandkids, or whatever that case is. there's different ways on how to use this as a fixed growth strategy. I'm just saying, you understand, I have this extra 100, 200,000 that's sitting here. I don't want to invest it in the market where it could ebb and flow. I want this to grow on some sort of safe basis that's not tied to obviously the market risk. So that would be a reason or a solution to leverage these fixed annuities. This third aspect, known as diversification, was really not apparent until recently, because you have the current economic environment where you have interest rates that are increasing and it's putting negative to bond values, while individuals are still trying to leave their money in the market. So when somebody's trying to create a diversified portfolio and they say, I want to leverage a combination of stocks and bonds, typically if they're two non-correlated asset classes, meaning if one's going down, the other could be unchanged, could be going up, could be going sideways, whatever that case is. Individuals have started gravitating towards a portion of their assets, whether that be their IRA accounts, their Roth IRA accounts, their non-qualified accounts, to say, hey, I still want half my money invested in the market, but I want that other half, rather than leveraging towards bonds, I want it sitting into some sort of fixed account, some sort of fixed annuity, or fixed bank-related product, whatever that is. So it allows them to have that diversification. Allows, let's say in that example, 50% that's going to ebb and flow with the market, while the other 50% is going to be fixed, and they're just going to get that constant fixed rate of return regardless of whatever this portion of money is doing. So if, let's say, the market does well, they're getting the benefits from the market going up, and they're also getting the benefits of the fixed rate of return. If the market goes south, then you obviously know this portion of dollars is going down, but this portion of dollars is saved, preserved, protected, and getting that fixed rate of return. So that's a nice diversification play that individuals have started using more for shorter duration accounts. 2-year, 3-year, 5-year accounts, things that it just kind of serves its purpose to say, I want to just pad up my account to make sure that it's avoiding those downward market losses, but it's still giving me some sort of reasonable rate of return along the way. Inheritance maximization could be a solution. This is if, let's say, somebody's just looking to leverage an account or leverage some sort of account to leave the beneficiaries, and they want to have some sort of fixed rate of return that's going to be left over to these beneficiaries. Well, then yeah, use whatever the best fixed option is, something that's not tied to the market. So that's how they could leverage inheritance maximization, especially with that power of compound interest that could really allow the account to fester in there correctly, as opposed to throwing into a bank CD where this individual is trying to leverage it for inheritance maximization, but they have to pay the tax each year if there's a gain on that account with the power of simple interest. So that's where, obviously these four main solutions is why an individual or how an individual could utilize a fixed annuity, effectively. So if you found value in this video and you want to hear what the best rates are with your specific situation, with your specific area, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. I hope you did find value in this. There's many times that individuals just say, you know what, I understand it, but I'm really not I really think that fixed annuities are paying too small of an interest rate of return. That's where individuals start to look towards shorter term fixed index annuities to give them that growth potential, but still have that preservation from downward market losses, which that's a whole separate conversation. If you found value in this video, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you can have access to the most updated videos. Thanks so much, guys.